And we actually are still letting the people speak because we have just a couple more. At Evita02, this is, I thought was a cool question. Do you have a favorite song or solo that you enjoy playing? I mean, of all the repertoires that you have, all the different styles, all the songs that you play night after night after night with all the different bands, is there one or two that you say, this is my song, I like my go-to song or my go-to solo?
Well, a lot depends on who I'm playing with and what band is out on tour. So if it's RTB band, Ross the Boss band, I would say that I don't know. On the past tour, it was Denied by the Cross. My solo on that record is just ferocious, right? And you know, the Manowar stuff. Let's say I would do Wheels of Fire. Wheels of Fire. You know, that's a super fast. You know, just a zillion beats a minute. But and then with the Dictators, I would say Who Will Save Rock and Roll. And with Death Dealer, I don't know because the tour hasn't started yet. So,
but you got 5 albums in the can almost at this point. Right. So we'll see.
The thing about Death Dealer, we'll tour on 2 records. We'll have Death Dealer 3 and 4 to tour on next year. Hopefully.
Perfect. Well, there you go. One more question from Let the People Speak is from @CDox37. What do you suggest for a good 70s fuzz tone or good metal crunch tone? You seem to have that great guitar tone. No matter what band you're in, you truly have a good guitar sound.
I'm going to give you a little bit of RTB trivia. I've never used an effect pedal in my life. I just plug right into the amp. Straight into the amp. All I have is a guitar tuner. And people have been looking.
You saved a lot of battery costs over the years.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And there's always something to step on and break. But I'm not saying again, I'm not saying it's for everybody to do what I do, but as Angus Young would do, we just 70s guitar players. We just plug straight into the amp. I mean, I know some guys use wah-wah pedal, which is great. I have a Vox wah-wah pedal. And but that's more like a physical, you know, that's more like a physical thing with the wah-wah pedal. It's like hitting
You're working it.
I recommend, there are great pedals out there. And Angle, by the way, Angle makes a great pedal. For
that's fuzz tone and stuff.
You have a small amp and you don't want to light up a half stack in your house.
Well, RTB style, what's your amp of choice then? Because we'll move really quickly because that is a caveat of that. Have you always been a Marshall guy or did you just enjoy the cabinets or what have you been shifting towards?
I always played through Marshalls. Even was the Marshall Major with the four inputs and we crossed the channels. There was no crunch on there was no gain back then, and then they made the ones with the gain and the 800 and the ones that I bought had gain on it. It was the Marshall 800s and I had 7 of them, and then which were all customized up and jacked up. And but I play my amp today is the Angle. I'm an endorser of Angle, which I think that and the EVH are the best amps in the world. Mr. Amplifiers, and who I pay extreme homage to. Yes, bless them. And I think the Angle, I use the Powerball 2, which is a very versatile amp. Great. If you listen to my new record, you can hear it. And great record, a great sound. It's a great sound, the Angle. It's got a lot of headroom. It's this super, super well engineered German engineering.
Nice. Well, people are going to have to come up and check out your live rig at a show near you. You have one more question, a bonus question, if you will, from Anders. He's a longtime listener. Can I go back to that real quick? Does Ross the Boss use sweatbands for his wrist?
No.
I don't like. He's referring to mine.
I really, when I'm on stage, I don't like anything on my wrists or my fingers. You know, I don't.
I use these red, white, and blue ones. It's more for show. You know, more for show.
It absorbs sweat. A lot of guys like that on their wrist. It gives them a little bit of for the, you know, because I know guys sweat like pigs on stage. Some of us.
That's
and it just especially in the summertime when you're like on stage and it's like 98 on stage and like it's like forget it, and which has happened to you and me. So.
Oh yeah. Well, what's it? There's a line out of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Guns for a pro, wristbands for show. I don't know, or maybe it was knives. No, guns for show, knives for pro. That's what it was. I knew it was something like that. But there is our Let the People Speak segment. Ross the Boss. One more section before we let you go and you go back into the studio and start recording more. But this is a nice thing we like to call, and there's only one question today on the podcast. And thanks everybody for chiming in the whole entire episode with all these great comments that you've been sort of typing in. Oh my God, that's right. I'm sorry. Vic Chalfant had a question. Our producer told me that he was going to have a question for you, and I didn't have it in my script because Vic Chalfant should have typed it in my script, but he didn't. That's okay. Your album covers are always amazing, Vic Chalfant says. Can you tell us anything about who chooses a cover and who creates them? I think that is a great question.
Well, we start out with the artist. We choose the artist, and we tell them what we're thinking. We give him a concept, and then he comes forth with a couple of ideas, rough sketches, and then we take it from there. And then we say, yeah, that's it. That's not it, and
Well, for instance, that Marvel artist that you had, how did he approach you? Did you approach him, or was it a collaborative with the record label?
Well, no, the record label had nothing to do with that. We got in touch with Ken Landgraf, and I said, look, I grew up on Marvel Comics, man. I grew up on Thor. I grew up on Spider-Man and all those guys in the great Marvel Comics. I grew up on that. I grew up on Norse mythology and stuff like that. So yeah, well, that was another. Yeah. So he did that. That was the only cover he did for Manowar, was Hail to England. Strangely, that was a different guy, right? Yeah, that was a different artist.
But it's all great work, and Vic makes a really good point that all the artists that you work for really sort of reflect the albums and the sort of attitude coming off the albums.
It has to. You got to know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, when you see the cover, I mean, it's like it's like a metal cover. If it's a metal cover, my album, my RTB and Death Dealer, it's going to be metal. I mean, pretty much power metal.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what you're going to get from the Dictators as well. You're going to get, New York City Gutter Street, and so.
Well, the sort of common line is attitude. You're going to get some attitude on every release that you put in because you put in the work for it. Haircut and attitude, which we both might need a haircut at one point after this pandemic is over. But check it out. Now it's time for Never Let the Truth Get in the Way of a Good Story. And at one point, we're going to have a really good introduction for this. We're going to make a segment sort of intro for it. But maybe, do we have one for us this week, Vic? No, we don't. Okay. So the thing is about Never Let the Truth Get in the Way of a Good Story. It's something that Alice Cooper uses all the time. We're on the bus, and he'll tell a story, and he'll start to embellish a little bit, and then he'll say, wait, Roxie, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So we thought we'd put a little segment of that here in our show. I want to know, I know you probably mentioned it and probably explained it a million times, but our fans, our folks in the chat, people listening in their cars right now, what is the true story of the name Ross the Boss?
Well, I'll tell you, growing up in the Bronx, we used to play sports every day. That's all we did after school. So we go to the schoolyard, and that was where we grew up, in schoolyards. And we would choose sides. We would play either stickball, or we would play tackle football on concrete without equipment, and we would play. Well, we would do something. And so like one day, my friend goes, we were choosing up sides. He goes, pick Ross. He's the boss. I mean, and I was like,
the skies parted,
and then fact. And then
that, folks, this is the fact. This is the reason why Ross the Boss is a purely factual. Continue.
But when it really took hold is when the first Dictators record, we said, look, we're a bunch of Jewish kids from the Bronx, and Ross Friedman and Richard Blum and Andy Chernoff and Scott Camp, and those names are not. It just doesn't, it doesn't instill rock and roll in, But there have been great Jewish rock and roll, musicians from New York, Steve Katz and Mike Bloomfield and you know,
but you guys you were in a band called the Dictators, so you needed stage names that just would compete with that. Is that where it really started to shine?
So I said Ross the Boss, and that's what it's been since 1975. There you go. Yep. That's it. Dictators. And yep, that's what it's been. Ross the Boss. I mean,
1975 to 2020, folks. That is the factual story, folks, of Ross the Boss.
I think it's hurt me professionally.
Right.
People think that I'm like because people think, is this guy a clown? Is this guy, there's only one boss, it's Bruce Springsteen. And it's like, I said, but it's, you gotta have a little sense of humor about things in life. I mean, let's say Ross the Boss. I mean, come on. It's like, I'm not saying it because I'm not saying it because I think that's the way it is. I've been given that name, so I'm like, I'll always be Ross. I mean, till the day I die. I mean, and looking back on it, I wish could have been like Ross Presley or Ross Page or Ross Beck. I mean, something like that. But we are who we are, and
right. People are embracing Ross the Boss, and they have been, will do, and shall for the rest of our time. And we are almost out of time. What'd you say?
To know me is to love me.
There you go. Well, I came up with Ryan Roxie because I didn't want a really long, for one, the wrong Polish name, Ryan Roxie, would just not fit on any sort of venue or any sort of marquee. So I shortened it to Roxie. And you know what? Hey, I've been called a poser ever since. But guess what? I'm a professional poser.
There you go. And Vince Fernier had an idea about his name too.
That is true. Seemed to work out for him as well.
I'm Ryan Roxie, and I've taken all my years of experience of playing guitar, and I want to pass the torch of rock and roll on to you. Check out the System 12 Guitar Method.
Hello folks, Roxie here. Thanks for watching the video. And if you liked it, hit the subscribe button or one of the videos around me to watch more. If you'd like to, please leave a comment. If you didn't like the video, maybe you'll forget how to type.